welcome to our front porch conversation here at Abbott Christian Village. We're on the front porch on a fall day, beautiful outside, and we have as our guest today, Rolanda LeCrone. Rolanda, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
And you feel like you're maybe where you grew up a little bit by temperature this morning?
Yes, very much so.
So share with our viewers where you grew up.
I grew up in Maine, in the northern part of the state, almost on the Canadian border. And so, yeah, it was cold there a good bit of the time. A lot of snow in the wintertime. My dad was a farmer. We had both dairy cows, and he grew about an acre of potatoes. Everybody will make fun of my enunciation of potatoes. I know that. But it was an idyllic childhood. It was a wonderful childhood growing up there on the farm. So.
And you were born in Maine as well?
I was born in Maine, yeah. I believe I would have been the fourth generation.
Wow.
My ancestors, my dad's relatives, came over from New Brunswick, actually. So, but yeah, born and raised in Maine.
And there's somebody who's pretty well known around here too that grew up with you, right? You have a sister?
My sister Holly, yes.
Holly Setzer.
Holly Setzer, yeah. She was the youngest of three girls. And I had a middle sister who passed away about 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer. So there's just Holly and I now.
Well, and we're glad you came to the village to live.
Yeah, so am I.
Well, there are a few things that happened in between the time you were born and you came to Advent Christian Village.
Yeah, a lot of things.
You went to high school in?
I went to high school in Presque Isle, yeah, and graduated from there. From there I went to nursing school in Bangor and graduated from nursing school there at Eastern Maine Medical Center and began working at Eastern Maine Medical Center. So most of my nursing career was right there at that hospital, with the exception of a short, brief time at St. Joseph's Hospital, which is also in Bangor, and Taylor Osteopathic, that's no longer there, and an osteopathic hospital down in Waterville.
Do you have a nursing specialty or where you've spent most of your career?
Yes, I was mostly in the operating room and loved it. I learned to not only circulate, RNs usually circulate the case in the room, but I also learned to scrub. And that was something when I first got into OR nursing that wasn't the usual. And then gradually as time progressed, we all learned to scrub, which was a very good thing because in 1990, I started in cardiac surgery and did 9 years in cardiac surgery.
Wow.
Which was really fascinating.
I know that a lot has changed in nursing through the years.
Oh, yes.
What would you say is the biggest change that you've seen?
Oh, technology is a huge one. What we used to do when I first got out of school is now no longer the norm. We rely on technology and computers. That was a big one. Charting was all done by hand. Mm-hmm. Now it's all done on computers so that anybody can access the information on a patient. The floors are different. Patients are usually now in private rooms because of HIPAA. Mm-hmm. People that are really sick are the only patients that come into the hospital now, whereas gallbladders used to be done in the main OR and you used to spend 4 or 5 days in the hospital. It's now done in outpatient surgery and you go home that day.
That is a big change.
That's a huge change, yes.
I know even my mother said when I was born, she was in the hospital 10 days. And now it's kind of going back to the past, but there are a lot of home births and midwife deliveries. And
yes, midwives were a big positive to birth and having somebody that I don't know. I think they pay a little maybe extra attention to you. They're a very different kind of person, more personable, and most mothers really enjoy a birth done by a midwife.
Well, I skipped a few questions.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us about your childhood and any special memories you have of growing up?
Oh, growing up on a farm was wonderful. Animals, playing out in the fields. We had woods where we would go in and make a playhouse. My dad, of course, we would go into the milking parlor, and we actually kept Nestle's Quick in the milking parlor so that we would go get a cup full of warm milk right from the cow
My gosh.
and stir the Nestle's Quick in with it and have kind of like a hot chocolate in the wintertime, yeah.
That's a story nobody's ever shared with me before. I love that.
That's a little different. We would earn money by scrubbing out the milk cooler. Riding bikes, I mean, we had a great big yard to ride bikes in. Our family was very much into playing games together, so badminton and all that kind of stuff. I liken it to like a little house on the prairie growing up, just very close-knit. Our church was right down the road, and my grandparents went to that church, and we knew everybody in the community. It just was very, very close-knit, and I guess I can't imagine growing up any other way.
And that was an Advent Christian church?
It was an Advent Christian church. It was, yep.
What about during your time? Did you go away to nursing school, or were you able to live at home to do that?
No, I went away to nursing school down in Bangor, which is only about 2.5 hours from Presque Isle, but
That'd be
course,
a big commute in the winter,
right,
for sure.
Of course, back then, 2.5 hours was quite a ways away, and I got homesick, and but I was able to come back home by hitching rides with friends and people I knew at the University of Maine in Orono, which wasn't that far away. And so I got home at least once a month, sometimes more. So that I got to see my parents and my sisters and everything quite often. But it was nice, the autonomy of going away to school and being on my own was really nice. So,
and I think for young people, that's an education in itself.
Very much so. Having to be on your own, having to manage your money, just in the studying and everything you had to do going through school. Yeah, you had to be disciplined, and that was a little different than high school, so
Right.
it was a good thing. I enjoyed nursing school a lot.
What I know that you have several interesting hobbies and things you like to do. Would you share with our viewers some of those?
Oh,
some of your
gosh.
crafting and
I love crafting. I get that from my mom. My mom sent me to sewing lessons at 10 years old at the Singer Sewing Center in Presque Isle. So I learned to sew very early in life, and that led into all kinds of other crafting. And my mother was very, very clever at doing all these things, and I guess I probably inherited that from her, because my other two sisters weren't that interested in that. So I still craft. Once I retired in 2014, I got into quilting. My husband and I, we retired to Waynesville, North Carolina, and there was a beautiful quilting shop about 45 minutes away that gave lessons. So every Monday we headed up to Franklin, and my husband would go target shooting while I went to quilting class. And I met people that I'm still in touch with today, and learned from somebody that was very, very good, and still continue that today. I've found quilting friends here in the village, so that's wonderful.
And what are your favorite quilting projects? Are they the big quilts or other smaller pieces, or do you have a favorite?
I like to do nothing smaller than probably a laptop quilt. I don't see much use for wall hangings and things like that, but the biggest thing I ever accomplished was a queen-size quilt for my own bed. That was a big one. But I made quilts when my middle sister was going through chemotherapy. I made her a really bright, nice lap quilt for her to take to her chemotherapy. And since she lived down in Ormond Beach, the border on it had flip-flops and a son with sunglasses on and all kinds of fun things like that. It was very bright and cheery, so that was a joy to make, a real joy.
I know the Waynesville area really well.
Ah,
I have
you
a friend
do?
that goes there. Has a cabin. I go every summer except for this one, and I love that area.
It's beautiful.
All the way around Franklin and all those beautiful small towns.
Yeah. We enjoyed living there so much and exploring, and Asheville was only 20 minutes away if you wanted to go shopping, but the Blue Ridge Parkway was right there, and to go on there and see the mountains for the first time was, you think you see mountains in New England, but you go on that parkway and look at the Smoky Mountains, and it's like discovering mountains all over again. The scenery was just, it's hard to describe. It was that beautiful. So we just loved it there. And
where and when did you meet your husband?
That's a funny story, because we always liked to kid that I was the farmer's daughter and he was the traveling salesman. He worked for a medical supply company, and he used to come to the operating room because he would do surgical supplies. And we knew each other for over 10 years before we finally started dating, and then married in 1990. Had a wonderful life together until he died in 2017 from cancer. But he died in a place that he loved very, very much. That was a very hard time taking care of him as a nurse as he passed, and but I will never regret it. Mm-hmm. As difficult as it was, I will never regret it.
Well, and I'm sure you gained a lot of experience doing that can be a comfort to others as well.
I would hope so. If people need to, have reassurance about any of that, or ask questions about any of that, I'm happy to help, because having been through it, I can relate to what they're saying and the feelings surrounding this. Yeah, very much.
When did you begin thinking about moving to Advent Christian Village? Or first of all, when did you first know about the village?
Oh, I've known about the village for quite some time. Being in the Advent Christian denomination, most everybody knew about the village. I just didn't know that it had grown to what it is now. When I came down to look around, my brother-in-law Tim took me around, and I was just kind of dumbfounded at everything that had occurred here over the years. And I think the library had been the newest building when I came down. But to see this center with the pool and the exercise room and all the different things you could do down here, ceramics, woodworking, painting, there was just so much to do, and it really took me by surprise that there was that much available down here. So in 2018, my sister Holly kind of said, well, you shouldn't be up there all by yourself in North Carolina. Why don't you think about coming down here? So that started the ball rolling, and she actually found my house for me. I bought the house that Dr. Michler had previously owned, right on the corner.
And that's in Riverwoods.
That's in Riverwoods, yeah. And I love my lot. I love my house. She helped me so much. And Dr. Michler's family allowed me to go in and paint and put flooring down before I even moved down and closed on the house. That was wonderful. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of big projects taken care of. And that
definitely makes a move easier, doesn't it?
I'll tell you, the first thing that comes to mind is Annabelle, who lives kind of diagonally across from me, stopping in her golf cart when I think I was outside at the time, and she was dressed like a clown. Yes. And I thought, wow, this is a really fun place just to welcome me. And I'd never had that many people come and welcome me to a place before. It was so wonderful.
Well, knowing Annabelle, as I do, and most people do, but that's Annabelle Christensen for our viewers. You might see her in some other costume someday doing other things too.
I've seen her in other costumes. They are such wonderful neighbors. Oh my word, they're just such wonderful. Everyone around me is so loving and so kind. And I have a neighbor, Judy Hatch, that lives across from me that knew that I kayaked up in Maine, so invited me to go kayaking with her. And being out on the Swanee River, it was an entirely new experience for me. A lot different from Maine.
No alligators in Maine, huh?
No alligators in Maine, no. So she's taken me several times down the river, and I use her husband Crosby's kayak. And we've gone with other people, and we've gone with just the two of us. And it's just beautiful, just in a different way. It's been so much fun getting back into kayaking again. And she's so gracious to invite me to do this. It's wonderful.
And there are a lot of beautiful spots around this area to kayak or to canoe.
Oh, yes, yes.
We're very fortunate with all our river and springs and just nature's beauty right here.
Nature is just really beautiful around here, and this is kind of what I would say is a hidden gem, you know, the river and all around it, and the nature trails Judy and I have gone on, and it's just completely unexpected that all of that was here. So it was a wonderful surprise.
When you were talking earlier about growing up in the church, was there a particular time that you really felt that you accepted the faith on your own as an adult? And
probably at we had a camp, Camp Namaca. I used to know what those initials stood for, Northern Maine. But it's a camp that there's quite a few Advent Christian camps around in northern Maine, so we would all go there in the summer, which was the only time you could really go. That's probably the first time that I really, as a teenager, accepted my faith for real. It became more real to me instead of just something that you did every Sunday with you as a family, go to church. Yeah.
And that I think that youth camps are such a valuable asset to young people. And I think it's true with whatever denomination you grew up in. It was certainly for me. And
I met so many people. We would have kids coming from across Canada to come to our camp. From Middle Simons, there was a Advent Christian church over there. So I met people that I wouldn't have ordinarily met. And of course, everybody was Advent Christian, and that just kind of cemented everything for me. So that was a wonderful time going to camp. Of course, all kinds of fun things at camp too.
Of course. When the village was a little more open before the pandemic, what were some of the things that you were involved in doing campus-wide?
Campus-wide, I was starting to get involved with the rustic shop, and that kind of fell through when the pandemic came because my sewing skills and things like that, I was going to lend a hand with some of that. just, that shop seemed to target what I liked with the crafts, and Myra down there does some quilting and things like that. So that's probably where, when things straighten out a little bit, I'll pinpoint as one of the places I'd like to go.
And what surprised you most after you actually moved here to the village, about the village?
What surprised me? Mostly everything that was here. I just wouldn't have thought all of this was here. And just the landscape of the park, the beauty of it. I mean, that really surprised me, that so much had happened, and since I had last seen it. And I knew I'd made the right choice when I saw all that. So it was pretty neat. The fact that I have a grocery store right here to go to if I need something is wonderful too. So
yeah, it's hard to think. There would be some things we could think we don't have, but maybe they're not that critical. There's
Probably
not a car
not.
wash, but I can still wash my car.
Yeah. You can wash it right in your yard. That's no problem.
What are some of the things on your bucket list to do?
Oh gosh, I want to see some of the springs around here that I haven't seen before. I've been to most of the cities and things around. Bucket list things. I've been a lot of places, so there's not a lot on my bucket list. My husband and I used to go on cruises a lot, so I've been down in the Caribbean quite a bit. The only thing we didn't get to go was Alaska, so maybe Alaska will be on my bucket list.
That's a wonderful trip to take, as a cruise or land-wise too. But yeah, I would like to go back and spend more time in interior Canada.
Yeah, that's what we had planned to do, was do the train trip into the interior. And we didn't get to do that, but maybe someday I will. So you never know.
We never know. We never knew a year ago we would be doing what we're doing now. But that's life, and things will change, and for the better.
Yes, I have hope that they will. In fact, I know in my heart that they will change and things will get back to normal. Maybe not the normal completely that we knew before, but maybe it'll be a better normal.
I think so. When if you were to sit down with a child today and tell them, give them some advice, what would you give them, a child or a young adult?
If I was to give a young adult some advice, I would probably tell them nothing is free. I think today's young people feel a little entitled to things, and I had to work hard to get where I am, and in order to retire and everything. So I would tell them nothing is free, and they need to work hard. And by working hard, they're going to learn more than something just handed to them. So that would probably be the best advice I could give them. That's
great advice. And that's good advice for people of any age.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. You have to work hard for what you want. And nowadays that's not easy. It takes a lot of determination, a lot of confidence to do that, to get in there and do what they need to do. But there's so much more open to young people now than there ever was when I was young. So kind of, if they take that mindset, the sky's the limit for them. I mean, there's so much they can do, especially women. I mean, so much is opened up for them.
Just before I left, I had the Today Show on, and they were interviewing this young woman who's going to be the first black female battalion leader.
Oh, yes.
I mean, and even when I was growing up, and I'm sure we thought about careers were nursing and teaching and maybe a few other, things, but
that was it.
There is no lack of opportunity for people of any kind, but particularly women's lives, ranges of opportunities have changed a great deal.
I remember meeting my first female doctor when I started working. So she was the only one I knew. And then gradually, as time went on, more and more came into the field, and they opened up a family practice residency in Bangor. So it was great seeing women come into this field and to be able to work with women. Now you see women astronauts. I mean, gosh, it's wonderful to see how this is, all these different fields have opened up for women. And the lady that just won the Nobel Peace Prize, how many times have you seen that? Was she the first?
I don't think so.
I don't think she was the first, but
it's not often they get.
No, so that was a big deal, I thought. So
yes. Well, to go to the flip side of that, I remember the first time I saw a male nurse, and it was when I had my first child, and he brought the baby into the room, and I'm like, where did that man get my baby? And he was probably 6.5 feet tall, and I thought, gosh, that baby looks little. Well, that was a very big baby that I had. But he was a wonderful nurse, and through the years, it goes both ways.
It does, and my husband got out of medical supplies and went back to nursing school.
Oh, really?
And he became an RN as well, and I have never met anybody that just was a natural. For a male to be a natural at nursing, he was so good at it and so compassionate at it. And he later went to the VA up in Caribou, Maine, and became a nurse. They call them nurse navigators now, to help the veterans get the services and stuff that they needed. And he just was so compassionate. So males definitely have a place in the nursing field, definitely.
It changes all the stereotypes are changing.
Yes, it does.
Many of stereotypes are changing.
And that's a good thing about today. The stereotypes are pretty much gone for men and for women. So that's a real positive.
It is. Well, Holly is a big part of your life, and
Yes.
and so now I'm calling you Holly as well. But Rolanda, it was really nice to sit down and have this conversation with you this morning.
Well, thank you, Ann. It was fun.
And I guess we have introduced a lot of people at the village to this porch, which is a great
I
place
imagine you have.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in, and come back again and watch another Front Porch Conversation.